In the early 90s, progressive rock was way past its prime. The wave that dominated the 70s had lost all momentum, and for record labels, betting on grassroots prog was as good as setting their money on fire. But the small group of friends from Long Island was determined to make it work, even as their own record label was trying to stop them. How did they become so famous? Why did their label limit their freedom, and how did they respond? In this video, we'll cover the journey of Mike Portnoy, John Petrucci, and their bandmates in the fight for their own music. This is the story of Dream Theater. Dream Theater's struggle with the music business began with their very first record deal in 1989. Upon signing, and with high expectations for their career, they hastily left their jobs and committed themselves to music. But on release, their debut album, When Dream and Day Unite, failed to create a meaningful buzz, and the record label seemed to have lost interest.
The record label didn't really do anything with it, so we never toured. We didn't have a lot of support.
They promised to make a video, they promised to put us on tour, and all those promises were just empty promises. Nothing ever happened.
To make things worse, it only took 4 shows for the band to realize their lead singer was not working out.
His stage presence at the few shows we did wasn't exactly what we wanted as a front man. And we were starting to feel the limitations of his voice. You know, we still wanted that operatic Jeff Tate, Bruce Dickinson type singer.
The band spent the next year and a half searching for a new singer. During that time, many promising candidates came and went.
We were working with this guy, Steve Stone, from Seattle, who was like a Jeff Tate look-alike and sound-alike. And before the gig, I was showing him like Live After Death, like the video. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, this is what we want. Like, we want a Bruce Dickinson type frontman. So he gets on stage and he just keeps singing, "Scream for me Long Beach, scream for me Long Beach." And we were in Bayshore.
Meanwhile, a journalist for Kerrang! Magazine named Derek Oliver, who had previously written a favorable review of Dream Theater's first album, had contacted the band. He was now working for Atco Records and wished to sign the band. Since they were still without a singer, Oliver had promised to sign them the moment they found their man. And in January '91, it happened.
Finally, a tape came our way from Canada.
Well, James's tape came in right before we were ready to commit to somebody, and we loved it.
You know, this guy could sing. He has an incredible sounding voice.
Pulled out his picture and he had the look we were looking for. Wow, this guy's really good looking too, man. You know, he had a great voice and he looked good. Oh, he must be an asshole, you know. We fly him out, he's a cool guy. He really got along with us.
Together with Labrie, the band entered Bear Track Studios in October '91. At this point, most of the material for the album had already been written, rehearsed, and even road tested. As with traditional prog rock, almost every song crossed the 7-minute mark, and one song, titled A Change of Seasons, ran for over 17 minutes. This prompted Derek Oliver to get involved. After some back and forth, the band agreed to drop the song and write a couple of shorter songs instead, in order to appeal to a wider audience. However, the band was still able to showcase their twist on prog rock, particularly in the track Metropolis Part 1, The Miracle and the Sleeper. The song featured James Labrie's operatic singing, as well as intricate instrumental parts. And a fair bit of tricky rhythms that were quite foreign to the metal world. The band released Images and Words in July '92 and immediately went on tour to promote it. A few weeks in, as they were driving their van from one show to another, the radio started playing one of their songs. That song was called Pull Me Under.
All of a sudden, Pull Me Under started to catch on, and when we were doing all those drives in the van, suddenly we would hear Pull Me Under everywhere we went.
In response, the label scrambled to get a music video together quick enough to ride the wave, and sure enough, it was an instant hit, being played up to 6 times a day on MTV. Suddenly, doors started to open for Dream Theater everywhere.
I'm gonna do it the way Paul did it. Amazing! That's a dream come true for me.
They proceeded to tour the US, Europe, and even got to visit
こ
Japan.
れからも日本で頑張ってください。期待してます。
Said I don't like Dream Theater that much, but I had a pen and some paper, so what the
Images and Words, their second attempt at combining progressive rock and heavy metal, exceeded all expectations. In an attempt to further build on the success, the label commissioned another music video, this time for a shorter and more accessible song.
Another Day was the song with the most MTV potential, and
So
it
we
was the
thought.
song that potentially never made MTV.
And we thought it would be a big radio potential song.
So it just goes to show you, balls and chunk is where it's at.
Regardless, Dream Theater went back to the studio shortly after the tour to record their follow-up album. But what they thought would be smooth sailing from here on out turned out to be a lot more complicated. Dream Theater were now carrying the torch for a new wave of music. So new, in fact, that in '94 the label was still not sure how to market the band. Heavy metal, on the other hand, was pretty well figured out. And seeing as most of their success originated in Pull Me Under, the requirement from the label was clear. We want it as heavy as you can make it. The band accepted the label's request and began the writing sessions. Now, with a successful record behind them, the pressure was on, and tensions between the band members were growing. According to Mike Portnoy, the fighting never came to blows, but there was a lot of bickering over every single element, like what the third note on the 64th bar should be. Eventually, they seemed to have gotten past their differences and managed to complete the recording. But during the mixing sessions, one of them decided that he had enough.
The Awake sessions marked the end of our relationship with Kevin Moore. Kev was kind of growing distant to us personally.
You know, he wasn't contributing like he used to. His heart wasn't into the direction, and he, you know, he lost his passion.
As devastating as it was, this was no time to quit. Now a four-piece, Dream Theater released Awake in October of '94 and made 2 music videos to promote it. The first one, which was meant to replicate the success of Pull Me Under, was called Lie. A second music video was later made for the song The Silent Man, which was entirely acoustic. Now, with everything ready for the Awake tour, the keyboardist spot needed to be filled quickly, and soon enough, the band had set their eyes on a candidate. Jordan Rudess caught the attention of the band through Keyboard Magazine, where he was voted Best New Talent by readers. He was promptly invited for an audition and even played one show with the band. However, Dream Theater weren't the only interested party, and indeed Rudess was shortly picked up by the Dixie Dregs, whose touring schedule was a lot less intense than Dream Theater's. Luckily, a capable keyboardist came to their aid shortly after. His name was Derek Sherinian.
When I first received the songs that I had to learn for the audition, I was absolutely terrified because I had never heard music that insane before. I mean, I played some fusion in music college, but nothing that extreme.
With tour obligations looming over them, the band brought Sherinian on board as a hired gun, and the tour went on as planned. Several weeks in, Awake ended up selling well, but failed to generate a hit single, and ultimately the label considered it a commercial failure. To add injury to insult, Labrie discovered he'd ruptured his vocal cords mid-tour, and was advised by his doctor to abstain from singing for 6 to 12 months. Fearing for the band's future in the case of a long hiatus, Labrie chose to ignore the instruction. It was absolutely miserable, and it was an extremely dark and depressing period for me. Literally every night on the European leg, I wouldn't know if my voice would be there or if it would cooperate. But despite all the challenges, the band saw the tour to its conclusion. And, having proved himself on the road, Sherinian was recruited as a full-time member of Dream Theater. Now it was time for him to prove himself in the studio. This episode is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you're enjoying our content and want to help us sustain it, head over to patreon.com/razbenari and you'll be first to see our new videos plus extras. Thanks for watching! After Awake, the record label's confidence in Dream Theater was dwindling. This time, as far as the label was concerned, the album would have to be a lot more accessible and produce hit songs. Thus, they demanded to hear every new bit of music before allowing the band to enter recording sessions. But the band temporarily sidestepped the situation by opting to record a short EP instead. The idea came from their fan club, which was begging for an official release of A Change of Seasons, the same song that was excluded from Images and Words due to its length. In May 95, the band entered the studio to rewrite and record the now 23-minute long song with Sherinian on keyboards. After a short tour in support of the new EP, it was time to go back to the studio and give the label what it wanted. And while Petrucci and Labrie were receptive to the label's input, Mike Portnoy was trying to push it away. In early '96, the band started writing material for their fourth album. Throughout that year, the band submitted demos to the label, with one of them being a sequel to the epic fan favorite Metropolis.
Well, my question would be about Metropolis Part 2. When is it coming to the stores?
It is sitting in the vault.
We have to learn how to play it first.
Exactly.
But the label was having none of it and shut down the new material. Over and over and over again.
A year and a half writing, waiting to start our follow-up album, and just never given the green light by these people at the label.
It wasn't until early '97 that both parties came to a compromise. The label, with the help of external producers and songwriters, would oversee the production, and the band would have to let go of Metropolis Part 2, which ran a bit over 20 minutes. But at least, they could finally record.
Hey Derek, what are you doing today, man?
Making history, and you.
The new songs were rewritten and rearranged extensively, and the band even involved famous songwriter Desmond Child, who co-wrote some of the biggest hits by Aerosmith, Alice Cooper, and Bon Jovi. Meanwhile, Mike Portnoy, who felt his life work was being taken over, wrote 2 songs about his frustration with Derek Oliver and the label, titled Burning My Soul and Just Let Me Breathe. The only single off the album, titled Hollow Years, was one of the label's biggest hopes for a radio hit. Despite all of their efforts, the song failed to draw much attention, and Falling Into Infinity, released September '97, failed to meet sales expectations, to an even greater extent than Awake. The tour in support of the album was the band's attempt at making up for this strange period, both for them and supposedly for the fans who were robbed of the authentic Dream Theater experience. For this reason, the band often played altered versions of the songs on Falling Into Infinity, ones that more closely resemble the original demos. As it became increasingly hard for the band to enjoy themselves during this time, one person made it their mission to boost the morale. That man was called Nicky Lemons.
Man has walked on the moon, man has created the wheel, and tonight we will create the most awesome live album ever made in rock and roll.
An alter ego of Derek Sherinian, Nicky Lemons would appear several times during the tour with his own original punk song, titled I Don't Like You.
You wanted the best, you got the best! The hottest band in the world! Nicky Lemons and the Migraine!
Other than singing, Sherinian would often pick up the guitar as the rest of the band would switch instruments for one song. By the end of the tour, it was clear to everyone involved that chasing radio success had put the band on life support. But for Mike and his bandmates, this couldn't be the end. They had to give it one more shot. And if there was one thing they learned from their tour with Nicky Lemons, it was how to make lemonade. After Falling Into Infinity, Mike Portnoy needed a change of scenery. He was contacted by Mike Varney, owner of Magna Carta Records, who wanted to fund Portnoy's next project, whatever it may be. Portnoy accepted and was given free rein. This was the birth of Liquid Tension Experiment, a progressive metal supergroup consisting of Portnoy, John Petrucci, bassist Tony Levin from King Crimson, and, much to the group's delight, keyboardist Jordan Rudess, the same one who declined Dream Theater's offer just a couple of years earlier. And as the bond between Rudess and the Dream Theater boys strengthened, they started toying with the idea of Rudess joining the band.
We recorded 2 albums, and they were both pretty successful instrumental albums, and successful to the point where we all felt like, this is a good thing. This writing chemistry, this personal chemistry is really powerful.
When Rudess showed receptiveness, it opened a huge discussion within the band. For this to work, they would need to release Sherinian, who had practically saved them more than once. But with the band's career on a downturn, it was now or never.
I did not see it coming. Now listen, straight up, if I was up and I was like missing my routines, or I was drunk or whatever, I could be the first and own it like a man and say, it was like someone came up from behind me and just socked me right in the stomach.
I felt worse more than anybody about it, because obviously Derek and I were kind of like the rockin' personality in the band.
We were the only personality in the band. What are you talking about? There was only room for one personality.
Hey!
Buongiorno!
Buongiorno! Ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him, you've seen him on stage with us last year, and now here he is, an official new member of Dream Theater, Mr. Jordan Rudess. Welcome aboard, Jordan. Are you happy with the sessions for the new album?
Oh, we're having a wonderful time playing music for our friends.
Now it was time to record the next album, and this time there could be no compromise.
If this band is going to stay together, the label has to stay out of our music. We don't want to work with outside producers anymore, no outside writers. The label will hear the album when it's finished. We're not going to them for permission on what is a hit single. They gotta, if this band's going to stay together, if this band is going to survive, everybody get out of our way, book the studio time, and let us make our record.
We had never just told the label at the time, yeah, we're going to do this on our own, leave us alone. It was a big move to get that across and to do it, to take it on. And it's also a big risk.
As for the direction of the album, the band had a very clear idea. With rumors of a Metropolis Part 2 demo existing since '97, the fans could wait no longer and demanded an official release. This was an opportunity for the band to revisit the song and expand it into a full-length concept album. While Petrucci's original Metropolis Part 1 dealt with mostly abstract concepts, the sequel took some of those and turned them into full-fledged characters and plotlines, written by the whole band.
There was no real plan as to what the Part 2 would ever be. It was just like one of those things, somewhere down the road we'll write Part 2. And the
pressure.
Right, so we put together kind of like a song, but the hard thing was how to, again, tie this into Metropolis Part 1, because the lyrics of that song have nothing to do with the story. It's completely arbitrary.
The album tells the story of Nicholas, a man haunted in his dreams by a strange woman named Victoria. With the help of a hypnotherapist, he learns Victoria was the victim of a murder that took place in the 1920s. Through the course of the album, Nicholas tries desperately to solve the mystery surrounding her case, so he could get on with his own life. Musically, the album goes through a variety of styles and is strikingly more playful than its predecessor, perhaps thanks to the involvement of Jordan Rudess.
Put my fingers on the keyboard and just let some of it out, and I just started riffing on one of the heavier riffs that we were doing. It was really a joke. It was to make the guy smile in the room. I didn't really think that anybody was going to take it seriously. But then, everybody laughed and went, I don't know who it was, but everybody said, oh my God, we should do that. And I was like, I'm new to this group. I'm like, okay, cool.
Aside from the vigorous and upbeat delivery of the more proggy tracks, the band also captures different tones, such as the gospel vibes of The Spirit Carries On. Upon its release in October '99, Metropolis Part 2 Scenes from a Memory was a remarkable success. The album was seen as a return to form, with critics regarding it as the band's best effort to date and one of the best concept albums of all time.
Scenes from a Memory was the resurrection of Dream Theater. We were firing on every level on that album. If that album had failed commercially or critically, then we all would have given up. We would have said, okay, you know what, it's not working.
During the following tour, fans came out in droves every night, celebrating the new release, and the band rewarded them by playing the entire album on every single show. Dream Theater's music spawned an entire wave of progressive metal artists, and it's hard to imagine where the genre would be today without them. As pioneers, they evidently had to fight tooth and nail for their space in the music world, through endless attempts by the business side to shoehorn them into boxes that wouldn't fit. But at every turn, their integrity won out against the forced production of hits, and their spontaneous and unconventional approach succeeded, where the label's carefully planned moves failed. To this day, Dream Theater continues to play their music to millions around the world, and as long as they're still going, they're likely to keep their title as the face of prog. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and if you'd like to see more of our documentaries, click here for a full playlist of them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Archok is cool. Hey, Beavis. Come on, give us a Beavis.
Yes!